I watched Sophia's designer heel connect with my father's ribs, and in that moment, I knew our engagement was over. The crowd gathered outside the Grand Meridian Hotel, gasped as the city's beloved philanthropist, Sophia Chen, delivered another kick to the elderly men curled on the marble steps. Her perfectly styled hair didn't move an inch as she sneered down at him, her diamond bracelet catching the afternoon sunlight like shards of broken promises. Nobody moved to stop her. Why would they? Sophia was untouchable. The daughter of Chen Industries, the woman whose face graced charity billboards across the city, the angel who had donated millions to homeless shelters over the past 5 years. Surely this beggar had done something terrible to deserve her wrath. I stood 20 feet away, frozen behind a marble pillar, my phone clutched so tightly in my hand that my knuckles had turned white. My father, the man who had raised me alone after my mother's death, the man who had sacrificed everything to put me through medical school, was being treated like trash on the street. And the woman I had been planning to marry in 3 months was the one delivering the blows. "Get away from here, you filthy creature," Sophia spat, her voice dripping with disgust. "This is a respectable establishment. Your kind isn't welcome." My father tried to speak, his weathered hand reaching up in a gesture of explanation. But Sophia stepped back as if he carried disease. "Security," she called out, her voice sharp and commanding. "Remove this trash immediately. And someone get me sanitizer. I feel contaminated." The security guards rushed forward, grabbing my father roughly by his thin arms. His worn jacket, the same one I had seen him wear for the past 3 years since his business collapsed, tore slightly at the shoulder. The small cardboard sign he had been holding fell to the ground. "Please help. Hungry. God bless." Something inside me shattered. Not broke, shattered. Like glass under a hammer, irreparable and final. I had spent 6 months trying to find my father after he disappeared from the hospital where I worked. 6 months of searching shelters, soup kitchens, abandoned buildings. And I had found him here, outside the hotel where Sophia and I were supposed to finalize our wedding venue, being kicked like an animal. I stepped out from behind the pillar, my decision made. Sophia was about to learn a truth that would destroy everything she had built. And I was going to enjoy every second of her fall. My name is John Miller, and 6 months ago, I was the happiest man alive. I had just completed my residency at St. Catherine's Hospital, one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the country. My specialty was cardiothoracic surgery, and I had been offered a permanent position with a salary that would have made my younger self weep with joy. More importantly, I was engaged to Sophia Chen, the woman I had loved since we met 2 years earlier at a medical charity gala. Sophia had been everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, sophisticated, passionate about helping others. She ran 3 charitable foundations, appeared regularly on television promoting causes for the homeless and underprivileged, and had a smile that could light up entire rooms. When she agreed to marry me, a simple doctor with a modest background, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. My father, Richard Miller, had been overjoyed at the news. Dad had always been my hero. After my mother died when I was 8 years old, he had raised me alone, working 3 jobs to ensure I never felt the absence of anything except her presence. He had been a successful small business owner once, running a consulting firm that helped struggling companies restructure and survive. He was brilliant with numbers, compassionate with people, and had taught me that true wealth was measured in the lives you touched, not the money you accumulated. Everything changed 2 years ago when Dad's business partner, a man named Vincent Zhao, embezzled nearly $2 million from their company and disappeared. The scandal destroyed Dad's reputation overnight. Clients fled, lawsuits piled up, and within 6 months, Dad had lost everything. His home, his savings, his health insurance, his dignity. I had tried to help, offering him money, a place to stay, but Dad was proud. Too proud. He refused to be a burden on me just as I was starting my career. One night, about 18 months ago, he simply disappeared from the modest apartment I had rented for him. I came home from a 72-hour shift at the hospital to find a note that read only, "I love you, son. Build your life. Don't waste time searching for a foolish old man." I had searched anyway. Every spare moment between surgeries, every day off, every evening. I filed missing persons reports, hired a private investigator with money I didn't have. Walked through every shelter in the city. Nothing. My father had vanished as completely as morning mist. Sophia had been supportive at first. She held me when I cried, accompanied me to a few shelters, made sympathetic noises. But after 3 months, her patience wore thin. "John, you need to accept that he doesn't want to be found," she had said one evening over dinner at her penthouse apartment. "Your father made his choice. You can't sacrifice your future for someone who abandoned you." I should have recognized the coldness in those words. Should have questioned how someone who claimed to dedicate her life to helping the homeless could be so dismissive of my father's situation. But I was drowning in grief and exhaustion, and Sophia represented stability, normalcy, a future where I didn't have to think about the pain. So I buried myself in work. I performed surgeries, saved lives, built my reputation. And I let Sophia plan our wedding, a lavish affair scheduled for June 15th at the Grand Meridian Hotel, with 400 guests and a price tag that made my stomach turn. Every time I suggested something simpler, Sophia would kiss my cheek and say, "Darling, this is my only wedding. Let me make it special." I met Sophia's family multiple times over those 2 years. Her father, Gregory Chen, was a cold, calculating businessman who ran Chen Industries with an iron fist. Her mother had passed away when Sophia was young, making us both members of the half-orphan club, as Sophia jokingly called it. She had no siblings, having been raised as the precious only child of immense wealth. Sophia's best friend, Deborah Wang, was a constant presence in our lives. Deborah worked as Sophia's personal assistant and foundation coordinator, handling the logistics of Sophia's charitable work. She was efficient, quiet, and always seemed to be taking notes on her tablet. I found her presence unsettling, as if she were documenting everything for some future purpose, but Sophia adored her. Then there was Ryan Foster, Sophia's ex-boyfriend from college. Ryan worked in finance and maintained an uncomfortably close friendship with Sophia. He attended our engagement party, sent Sophia gifts for no reason, and called her at odd hours. When I expressed discomfort, Sophia laughed it off. "Ryan and I are just friends, John. Don't be insecure. It's unattractive." I swallowed my concerns. Love required trust, didn't it? And Sophia had chosen me, not Ryan. That had to mean something. 3 months before our wedding, I finally received a tip about my father. A nurse at St. Catherine's mentioned seeing an elderly homeless man near the waterfront who matched Dad's description. I rushed there during my lunch break, hope and dread warring in my chest. But I found nothing except empty shipping containers and the smell of salt water. Sophia's frustration peaked that evening. "John, this obsession is unhealthy," she snapped, slamming her wine glass down. "Your father is gone. He's probably dead. You need to move on and focus on us, on our future." Her words cut deep, but I nodded, apologized, promised to let it go. What else could I do? The wedding was approaching, my career was flourishing, and everyone kept telling me how lucky I was to have someone like Sophia. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sophia suggested we finalize the venue details at the Grand Meridian. "The wedding planner wants us to do a final walkthrough," she explained. "We can have lunch afterward, make a day of it." I agreed, grateful for any excuse to think about something other than surgery schedules and the gnawing emptiness where my father should have been. I arrived at the hotel early, planning to surprise Sophia with flowers, only to find myself witnessing a scene that would change everything. My father, thin and weathered and broken, sitting on the hotel steps with a cardboard sign. And Sophia, beautiful and cruel and monstrous, kicking him like he was nothing. In that moment, standing behind the marble pillar, I realized I had never really known Sophia Chen at all. The woman I loved was a carefully constructed fiction, and the truth was about to destroy us both. "Stop." My voice cut through the murmur of the crowd like a surgical blade. Clear, cold, controlled. Sophia froze, her hand still raised as if to strike my father again. The security guards paused mid-motion, uncertain. Every face turned toward me as I stepped out from behind the pillar, my footsteps echoing on the marble. "John," Sophia's face transformed instantly, the cruelty melting into surprise and then concern. "Darling, I didn't realize you were here already. This homeless man was harassing guests, and I was just helping?" I interrupted, my voice still eerily calm. "Is that what you call this? Helping?" I walked past her without a glance, kneeling beside my father. Up close, the changes in him broke my heart. He had lost at least 40 pounds. His once strong hands were scarred and calloused. His hair, which had been salt and pepper 2 years ago, was now pure white. But his eyes, when they met mine, were still the same. Warm, intelligent, filled with a father's love. "John," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. "Son, you shouldn't be here. Don't let me ruin." "Dad," I said softly, helping him sit up. "It's okay. I've got you." Behind me, I heard Sophia's sharp intake of breath. "Dad," she repeated, her voice rising an octave. "John, what are you talking about? This is your father." I stood, turning to face her. The crowd had grown larger now, phones out, recording everything. Good. Let them watch. Let the whole city watch Sophia Chen's mask slip. This is Richard Miller, I said, my voice carrying across the marble plaza. My father. The man who raised me alone after my mother died. The man who worked himself to exhaustion to put me through medical school. The man you just kicked like a dog. Sophia's face went pale. John, I didn't know, I swear. He didn't tell me who he was, I thought. You thought he was just another homeless person, I finished for her. Just trash to be removed from your pristine world. That's not fair, Sophia protested. But her voice lacked conviction. Her eyes darted to the phone's recording, calculating the damage. John, let's discuss this privately. We don't need an audience for a family misunderstanding. Family misunderstanding, I repeated, almost laughing. That's what you're calling this? Deborah appeared at Sophia's elbow, her tablet clutched to her chest. Sophia, we should go inside, she murmured urgently. This is becoming a situation. A situation, I echoed. Yes. I suppose assaulting a homeless man in public could be described as a situation. My father's hand touched my arm. John, please. Don't make trouble for yourself. I'm fine. This doesn't matter. It matters to me, Dad. I turned back to Sophia, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. How many times had I watched her give speeches about compassion? How many galas had I attended where she accepted awards for her charitable work? How many interviews had she done, eyes glistening with fake tears, talking about the importance of treating every human being with dignity? You donate to homeless shelters, I said slowly. You're on television every other month talking about the epidemic of homelessness in our city. You've raised millions for these causes. And yet, when faced with an actual homeless person, your first instinct was violence. Sophia's jaw tightened. John, you're being dramatic. I made a mistake. I'll apologize to your father. Let's just. What would you have done if I hadn't been here? I asked. If I hadn't seen you? Would you have apologized then? Or would you have forgotten about this homeless man 5 minutes later? John, Ryan's voice came from my right. I hadn't noticed him arrive, but there he was, perfectly dressed as always. His expression sympathetic in that practiced way of his. I think you're upset, and rightfully so, but Sophia didn't know this was your father. She's dedicated her life to helping people like him. This was an honest mistake. People like him, I repeated, tasting the words. That's interesting phrasing, Ryan. People like him. Not people. Not individuals with stories and families and worth. People like him. A category. A problem to be solved or removed. Ryan's sympathetic expression faltered. I didn't mean it that way. Didn't you? I knelt again, helping my father to his feet. He was unsteady, and I could feel every rib through his thin jacket. When was the last time you ate, Dad? Yesterday morning, he admitted. There's a church that serves breakfast on Wednesdays. Yesterday morning. It was Thursday afternoon. Over 30 hours without food. I felt rage rising in my chest. Hot and righteous and dangerous. Sophia, tell me something, I said, still supporting my father. All those millions you've raised for homeless shelters. Where exactly does that money go? Her eyes narrowed. What kind of question is that? A simple one. You've raised, what, $5 million in the past 2 years alone. Your foundations supposedly support 12 shelters across the city. So where does the money go? It goes to the shelters, obviously. Sophia snapped. John, I don't appreciate the insinuation. Then you won't mind proving it, I said. Show me the financial records. Show me exactly how those donations are allocated. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia and Deborah exchanged a glance, brief but significant. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. And I knew, with the certainty of a diagnosis confirmed by every test, that something was very, very wrong. We can discuss this later, Sophia said finally. Her voice tight. Right now, let's get your father somewhere safe. I'll pay for a hotel room, meals, whatever he needs. We'll make this right. She reached for her purse, pulling out her wallet. I'll give him $5,000 right now. Consider it an apology for the misunderstanding. She held out a stack of bills, and I stared at them. $5,000. Offered so casually, as if money could erase what I had witnessed. As if I hadn't just seen the real Sophia Chen, the one who existed when cameras weren't rolling and awards weren't being presented. Keep your money, I said quietly. John, be reasonable, Ryan interjected. Sophia is trying to help. Help, I repeated. Yes, she's always trying to help. That's her brand, isn't it? Sophia Chen, the compassionate philanthropist. Except compassion isn't something you can buy or fake. It's something you either have or you don't. And Sophia, you just showed everyone here exactly what you really are. I helped my father toward the street, away from the crowd, away from Sophia's reaching hands and false promises. Behind us. I heard Deborah say urgently. We need damage control. This could destroy everything. Good, I thought. Let it destroy everything. Because everything they had built was based on lies, and it was time for the truth to burn it all down. But I didn't know yet just how deep those lies went. I didn't know that my father's homelessness, his disappearance, even the scandal that destroyed his business, were all connected to the woman I had almost married. I didn't know that Sophia's charitable empire was built on theft and deception. I didn't know that the truth I was about to uncover would not only end my engagement but expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the city's elite. All I knew, as I walked away from the Grand Meridian Hotel with my father leaning heavily on my arm, was that my life had just divided into two distinct parts, before I saw Sophia kick my father, and after. And the after was going to be very different from anything I had imagined. I took my father to my apartment, a modest 2-bedroom place near the hospital that suddenly felt like a sanctuary. As I helped him through the door, I noticed how he hesitated at the threshold, as if he had forgotten what it felt like to enter a real home. "It's okay, Dad," I said softly. "You're safe here." He nodded but didn't speak. The silence between us was heavy with 2 years of separation, filled with questions I didn't know how to ask and answers I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. I ran a bath for him, laid out clean clothes, and ordered enough food from the Chinese restaurant downstairs to feed 4 people. While he bathed, I sat on my couch, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Sophia. 23 text messages. Each one more desperate than the last. "John, please answer. We need to talk about this. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You have to believe me. John, this is ridiculous. Answer your phone. I'm coming over. Don't shut me out like this. We can fix this. I love you." I loved you, I thought, staring at those words on my screen. Past tense. Because whatever I had felt for Sophia Chen had died the moment her heel connected with my father's ribs. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Deborah. "John, I know you're angry, but Sophia is devastated. She made a mistake. Please give her a chance to explain. This could ruin her reputation if you don't help control the narrative." Control the narrative. As if the truth were something to be managed, spun, packaged for public consumption. As if what I had witnessed was just a public relations problem rather than a revelation of character. I turned off my phone. When my father emerged from the bathroom, he looked more like himself. Clean, dressed in my clothes that hung loose on his thin frame. His white hair combed back. But his eyes held a sadness that went deeper than physical exhaustion. We ate in silence at first. I watched him devour soup dumplings and fried rice with the desperate efficiency of someone who didn't know when his next meal would come. It broke something in me to see my father, who had always been so dignified and strong, reduced to this primal hunger. "Dad," I finally said. "Why didn't you come to me? Why disappear like that?" He set down his chopsticks, his hands trembling slightly. "John, you were just starting your career. I had become a liability. A scandal. Every time someone Googled your name, they would find articles about your father. The failed businessman. The man whose partner stole millions. I couldn't let that define you. So you chose to live on the streets instead?" "I chose to remove myself from your path," he corrected gently. "I thought if I disappeared, the scandal would fade. You could build your life without my shadow over it. You could marry that girl, become a successful surgeon, have everything you deserved. That girl just kicked you, Dad." He smiled sadly. "I know. I saw her before today, you know. At one of those charity events. She was giving a speech about helping the homeless, and I was in the crowd they brought in for the photo opportunity. They gave us new clothes. Fed us a nice meal, told us to smile for the cameras. Afterward, they collected the clothes back and sent us away with a $10 food voucher." I stared at him. "What?" "The charity events are staged, John. They bring in homeless people as props, take pictures, then send them back to the streets. I've been to 3 of them in the past year. Different organizations. But always the same pattern. The money doesn't reach us. I don't know where it goes, but it doesn't reach the people it's supposed to help." My hands clenched into fists. "The shelters," I said. "The ones Sophia's foundation supposedly support. Are they real?" "Some are real but underfunded. Some are just addresses with no actual facilities. I tried to stay at one last month, the Guardian Angel shelter on 5th Street. It was listed as having 50 beds and full meal service. When I got there, it was an abandoned warehouse. No beds, no staff. Nothing." The rage I had felt earlier returned, colder now, more focused. Sophia had been stealing. Not just money, But hope? She had built her entire public persona on compassion for the homeless, while actively defrauding the people who needed help most. Dad, I need you to tell me everything. Every charity event you attended, every shelter you tried to access, every detail you can remember. He looked at me with concern. John, what are you planning? I'm planning to destroy her, I said simply. She's been lying to everyone. The donations. The foundations. All of it. And I'm going to prove it. My father reached across the table, gripping my hand. Son, these are powerful people. Sophia's family has connections everywhere. If you go after her, they'll come after you. Let them, I said. Dad, you're alive because you're strong and lucky. But how many other people in your situation didn't survive? How many people froze to death last winter because the shelters that were supposed to have beds didn't exist? How many went hungry because the meal programs that were supposed to feed them were just line items on a fraudulent budget? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he squeezed my hand. Your mother would be proud of you. She always said you had a fierce sense of justice. The mention of my mother brought tears to my eyes. I wish she was here, I whispered. She is, my father said. She's always with us. We spent the rest of the evening talking. Dad told me about his life over the past 2 years, the kindness of strangers mixed with casual cruelty, the cold nights and dangerous days, the small community of homeless people who looked out for each other. He told me about a man named Thomas who had shared his last sandwich with Dad during a particularly hard week, and about a woman named Mary who sang hymns to keep everyone's spirits up at the soup kitchen. These are good people, John, he said. They've just had bad luck, made bad decisions, or been failed by systems that were supposed to protect them. They deserve better than to be used as props for someone's ego. As midnight approached, I set up the guest room for Dad, making sure he had everything he needed. As I was about to leave, he called out to me. John, be careful. I saw something today in Sophia's eyes when you confronted her. Fear, yes, but also calculation. She's not going to let you expose her without a fight. I know, Dad. I'm ready for whatever comes. But I wasn't ready. Not really. Because I still didn't understand the full scope of what Sophia had done. I didn't know that my father's business partner, Vincent Zhao, the man who had embezzled millions and destroyed Dad's company, had been working for Gregory Chen, Sophia's father. I didn't know that Dad's destruction had been orchestrated specifically to remove him from a business deal that would have exposed Chen Industries' illegal activities. I didn't know that my relationship with Sophia hadn't been the coincidence I thought it was, but rather a calculated move to keep me close, to ensure that if my father ever resurfaced, they would know about it immediately. And I didn't know that Deborah, Sophia's loyal assistant, had been documenting everything not to protect Sophia, but to protect herself, gathering evidence in case she needed to turn on her employer. All I knew that night, as I lay in my own bed listening to my father's soft snoring from the guest room, was that I had a purpose now. A mission. I was going to tear down Sophia Chen's empire of lies, brick by fraudulent brick. My phone, which I had turned back on, buzzed one last time before I went to sleep. It was a text from an unknown number. Dr. Miller, you don't know me, but I know what you saw today. I have information about Sophia Chen's foundations that you need to see. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow at Riverside Park, near the fountain, at 2 p.m. Come alone. A friend. I stared at the message for a long time. It could be a trap. It could be Sophia trying to control the situation. Or it could be exactly what it claimed to be, someone with evidence who wanted to help. I typed back a single word. Okay. Then I set my phone aside and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight, I just needed to sleep, to gather my strength for the war that was coming. In the darkness of my room, I made a silent promise to my father, to my mother's memory, and to all the people Sophia had exploited and betrayed. I would expose the truth. No matter the cost. The woman I had loved was a monster in designer clothing. And monsters needed to be dragged into the light. I arrived at Riverside Park 15 minutes early, positioning myself where I could watch the fountain from multiple angles. My years in emergency medicine had taught me to assess situations quickly, to spot danger before it became critical. The park was moderately crowded for a Friday afternoon, joggers, and mothers with strollers. Nothing obviously suspicious. At exactly 2 p.m, Deborah Wong appeared. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She wasn't wearing her usual professional attire, instead dressed in jeans and a simple jacket, her hair down rather than pulled back in its typical tight bun. She carried a large envelope and looked nervous, her eyes scanning the area constantly. Dr. Miller, she said as she approached. Thank you for coming. You're the friend? I asked, unable to keep the skepticism from my voice. She sat down on the bench beside me, clutching the envelope to her chest. I know you have no reason to trust me. I've been Sophia's assistant for 4 years. I've helped her maintain the facade. But what you saw yesterday, that wasn't the worst of it. Not even close. Then tell me. Deborah took a deep breath. 4 years ago, I was desperate for a job. I had student loans, medical bills for my sick mother, and no prospects. Sophia hired me at twice the market rate for an assistant position. I thought I was lucky. I thought she was generous. It took me 6 months to realize I wasn't hired for my skills. I was hired because I was desperate enough not to ask questions. She opened the envelope, pulling out dozens of documents. Financial records, bank statements, emails. I've been copying everything for 3 years, she continued. At first, it was just to protect myself, in case Sophia ever tried to make me the scapegoat. But then I realized the scope of what she's doing, and I knew someone had to stop her. I took the documents, scanning through them. What I saw made my blood run cold. The Guardian Angel Foundation, Sophia's largest charity, had raised $8.3 million over the past 3 years. According to the public tax filings, that money had been distributed to shelters, food programs, and job training initiatives. But according to the bank records Deborah had provided, only $700,000 had actually gone to charitable services. The rest had been funneled through shell companies back to accounts controlled by Sophia and her father. This is fraud, I said, my voice hollow. This is massive. Criminal fraud. It's worse than fraud, Deborah said quietly. She pulled out another document, this one a property deed. The Wellington Building on 5th Street, the address for the Guardian Angel Shelter. Sophia's foundation claims to pay $90,000 a year in rent for that building. But look at who owns it. I looked. The building was owned by Chen Holdings, Gregory Chen's real estate company. She's paying her own father's company, I said slowly. With donation money. And there is no shelter there, Deborah confirmed. It's an empty warehouse. The $90,000 a year is pure profit for Chen Holdings. She's done this with 6 different properties. Fake shelters, fake programs, all of them paying rent to companies owned by her family. The donations are essentially being laundered into the Chen family's pockets. I felt sick. How much in total? Deborah pulled out a spreadsheet. Over $11 million in the past 4 years. And that's just from the Guardian Angel Foundation. She runs 2 other foundations with similar structures. Why are you telling me this? I asked, studying her face. Why now? You could have gone to the police years ago. Her eyes filled with tears. Because yesterday, when you confronted Sophia, I saw something I hadn't seen in 4 years. Someone who actually cared. Someone who looked at that homeless man, your father, and saw a human being worth defending. I've been complicit in this for too long, Dr. Miller. I can't carry this guilt anymore. There's something else, she continued. Your father's business partner, Vincent Chow. He didn't embezzle money and run away. He's dead. The world seemed to tilt. What? 6 months after he supposedly disappeared, his body was found in a warehouse fire. The police ruled it an accidental death. But Vincent had been working for Gregory Chen. Your father's consulting firm was about to expose some illegal labor practices at one of Chen's factories. Gregory paid Vincent to sabotage the business and steal enough money to make your father look like the criminal. When Vincent threatened to confess, he became a liability. You're saying Sophia's father had him killed? I'm saying the fire was very convenient, Deborah said carefully. And I'm saying that Gregory Chen has made other people disappear when they threatened his business interests. Including a journalist who was investigating Chen Industries 2 years ago. She was found dead in her apartment, apparent suicide. But she had been asking questions about the charitable foundations just weeks before. I stared at the documents in my hands, understanding now why my father had been so afraid. This wasn't just about fraud. This was about a family willing to destroy anyone who got in their way. Sophia knows I loved you, Deborah said quietly. She talked about it constantly. How she had you wrapped around her finger. How you were so desperate to believe in her goodness that you never questioned anything. She said you were useful because your reputation as a surgeon gave her credibility. Dating a doctor who saved lives made her look more authentic. The words stung, but I pushed the pain aside. What's her plan now? She knows I saw her yesterday. She knows I'm not going to stay quiet. That's why I'm here, Deborah said urgently. This morning, Gregory Chen held an emergency meeting. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. They're planning to discredit you. They're going to claim you've been embezzling from the hospital, that you've been forging prescriptions, Anything they can fabricate to destroy your credibility before you can expose them. Gregory has connections in the police department, in the media, everywhere. By this time next week, you'll be the villain, and Sophia will be the victim of a deranged, jealous fiancé. I felt cold calculation settle over me. Then we need to move first. I have copies of everything, Deborah said, gesturing to the envelope. Financial records, emails, recorded conversations. It's enough to prove fraud, maybe enough to trigger a real investigation into Vincent Zhao's death and the journalist's suicide. But you need to be careful, Dr. Miller. These people are dangerous. Call me John, I said. And thank you, Deborah. I know what this cost you. She stood up, looking around nervously. There's one more thing. Ryan Foster. Sophia's ex-boyfriend. He's not just a friend. They've been sleeping together your entire relationship. I have hotel records, text messages. Sophia was going to marry you for your reputation and respectability while keeping Ryan as her actual partner. She called it having the best of both worlds. The betrayal should have hurt more, but I felt almost nothing. Sophia had never been real. The woman I loved had been a performance, carefully calculated to manipulate me. Learning about Ryan was just another piece of evidence confirming what I already knew. She doesn't love anyone, Deborah said softly. Not Ryan, not you, not the homeless people she pretends to help. Sophia only loves herself and the image she's created. Everything else is just a transaction. Then, let's make sure this transaction costs her everything, I said. Deborah nodded and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of park visitors. I sat alone on the bench, the envelope of evidence heavy in my hands. I had everything I needed to destroy Sophia Chen. But I also knew that the moment I made my move, the full weight of the Chen family's power would come crashing down on me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. John, I'm giving you one last chance. Meet me tonight at the hotel. 8 in the evening. We can still fix this. Don't throw away everything we have over a misunderstanding. I love you. I typed back slowly. I'll be there. Because I was done running, done hiding, done being manipulated. Tonight, in the same hotel where I had watched Sophia reveal her true nature, I was going to end this. One way or another. The war had begun. I arrived at the Grand Meridian Hotel at 7:45, 15 minutes early. This time, I wasn't hiding behind pillars. This time I walked through the front entrance with my head high, the envelope of evidence in my messenger bag, and a recording device hidden in my jacket pocket. The hotel manager recognized me from yesterday's incident. Dr. Miller, he said nervously. Miss Chen has reserved the private dining room on the top floor for you. Should I escort you up? I know the way, I said. As I rode the elevator up, I reviewed my plan. I had spent the afternoon making copies of everything Deborah had given me, storing them in 3 separate locations, including with my attorney. I had also sent a carefully worded email to a journalist friend from medical school, someone I trusted, with instructions to publish everything if I didn't check in by midnight. The elevator doors opened to reveal a lavishly decorated hallway. The private dining room was at the end, its double doors already open. Soft music played from inside, and I could smell expensive food. Sophia had spared no expense for what she probably thought would be a reconciliation. I walked in to find not just Sophia, but Ryan and Gregory Chen as well. John, Sophia stood immediately. Stunning in a navy dress, her smile, warm and practiced. I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure you would. I stayed near the door, assessing the room. 1 exit, 3 people, all of them probably expecting me to be emotional and off balance. They were wrong. Why are they here? I asked, gesturing to Ryan and Gregory. Because this concerns all of us, Gregory said smoothly. He was a silver-haired man in his 60s, impeccably dressed, with cold eyes that assessed me like a balance sheet. Sophia told me what happened yesterday. An unfortunate misunderstanding, but one we can move past. Please, sit down. Let's discuss this like civilized people. I remained standing. There's nothing to discuss. The engagement is over. Sophia's face fell, but I caught the flash of anger in her eyes before she masked it. John, please don't be hasty. I made a mistake. I didn't know that man was your father. If I had known, you would have what? I interrupted. Treated him with basic human decency. That's the problem, Sophia. You shouldn't need to know someone's identity to treat them like a person. Ryan stepped forward, his expression sympathetic. John, I understand you're upset. But you're throwing away a future with an incredible woman over one bad moment. Everyone makes mistakes. Do they? I pulled out my phone, opening the folder of photos I had taken of Deborah's documents. Do you want to know what I've been doing since yesterday? Ryan. I've been researching. The Guardian Angel Foundation. The Hope Rising Initiative. The Second Chance Project. All of Sophia's charitable organizations. Want to guess what I found? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Gregory's eyes narrowed. John, be very careful what you say next. I ignored him, focusing on Sophia. The Guardian Angel Shelter on 5th Street. Your foundation claims to pay $90,000 a year in rent to operate a 50-bed facility there. Except there is no facility, is there, Sophia? It's an empty warehouse owned by your father's company. You've been paying rent to yourself with donation money. That's absurd, Sophia said, but her voice was tight. John, you're clearly not thinking straight. Your father's reappearance has upset you. Maybe you should see someone, talk to a therapist. $8.3 million, I continued, my voice growing louder. That's how much you've raised through the Guardian Angel Foundation alone in the past 3 years. Do you know how much actually went to helping homeless people? $700,000. Less than 10%. The rest went into shell companies that funnel money back to your family. You have no proof of that, Gregory said sharply. I held up my phone. I have bank records, property deeds. Emails between you and Sophia discussing how to structure the companies to avoid detection. I have recorded phone calls where you laugh about stupid donors who believe your daughter's tears and speeches. I have everything. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Ryan laughed, but it was a forced sound. John, even if you have some documents, do you really think anyone will believe you? You're a doctor, not a forensic accountant. You probably misunderstood what you were looking at. I didn't misunderstand anything, I said coldly. And I'm not the one who needs to convince people. The evidence speaks for itself. Tax fraud, wire fraud, theft by deception. Those are federal crimes. When I go to the authorities tomorrow morning, they'll have everything they need to start an investigation. Sophia moved toward me, her eyes wide and pleading. John, please. You love me. I know you do. We can work this out. If there are problems with the foundation's accounting, we'll fix them. We'll hire new accountants. Return the money, whatever it takes. Just don't do this. Fix them. I stared at her. Sophia, you didn't make accounting errors. You built a criminal enterprise. You've been stealing from people who wanted to help the homeless, and using that money to buy yourself designer clothes and penthouse apartments. You're not going to fix that. You're going to prison for it. Her pleading expression vanished, replaced by pure rage. You self-righteous bastard, she hissed. You think you're better than me? You think your precious morals make you special? You're nothing, John. A mediocre surgeon from nowhere. And I made you somebody. I gave you access to my world, introduced you to important people, elevated your status. And this is how you repay me? By telling the truth? Yes, that's exactly how I repay you. Gregory stood, his voice hard as steel. Dr. Miller, let me make something very clear. If you pursue this, I will destroy you. I have connections in every major institution in this city. One phone call and you'll lose your medical license. Another phone call and you'll face criminal charges of your own. I can make evidence appear that shows you've been embezzling from St. Catherine's Hospital. I can produce witnesses who will swear you've been forging prescriptions. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to get a job cleaning bedpans, let alone practicing medicine. I smiled. Deborah told me you'd say that. She actually predicted your exact threat almost word for word. Sophia's face went white. Deborah? What does Deborah have to do with this? Everything, I said. Your loyal assistant. The one who's been documenting your crimes for 3 years. She gave me all of this. She told me about Vincent Zhao. About the journalist who died asking questions. About how you've been sleeping with Ryan throughout our entire relationship. She gave me everything I needed to bury you. That lying bitch. Sophia shrieked. Her composure completely shattered. I gave her a job when no one else would hire her. I paid her more than she deserved. And she betrays me like this? She betrayed you. I asked incredulously. Sophia, you've betrayed everyone who ever trusted you. Every donor who believed in your cause, every homeless person you used as a prop for photo opportunities, everyone you've ever claimed to care about. Deborah didn't betray you. She just stopped being complicit in your crimes. Ryan moved suddenly, trying to grab my bag. Give me that evidence. I stepped back, and Ryan stumbled. Touch me again, and I'll add assault to the charges. There won't be any charges, Gregory said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling my attorney and the police commissioner. We'll have this situation contained within the hour. Call whoever you want, I said. I've already sent copies to a journalist. If I don't check in by midnight, the story publishes online with all the evidence attached. You can't contain this, Mr. Chen. It's already too big. Sophia lunged at me. Her carefully manicured nails aimed at my face. You're ruining my life. Everything I've built. Everything I am, you're destroying it. I caught her wrists, holding her back easily. You destroyed it yourself, Sophia. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. She struggled against my grip, tears streaming down her face, but these weren't the practiced tears she used for television interviews. These were real, born of rage and fear, and the dawning realization that her world was collapsing. Let me go, she screamed. I released her and she stumbled back, her dress torn slightly from her own struggling. Ryan caught her, and for a moment they stood there, the perfect couple united in their corruption. You know what the saddest part is? I said quietly. I really did love you, Sophia. The you I thought you were. The compassionate, caring woman who wanted to make the world better. But that person never existed, did she? It was all an act, all a carefully constructed lie to get what you wanted. I wanted you, she said, her voice breaking. I did love you, John. In my own way. Your own way involved using me for credibility, while sleeping with him. I gestured to Ryan. Your own way involved stealing millions from charities while pretending to care about the poor. That's not love, Sophia. That's not even close to love. Gregory stepped between us, his face cold and calculating. Name your price. Dr. Miller. Everyone has a price. 10 million. 20. Name it. And this all goes away. You get rich, you get to keep your medical license, and we all move on with our lives. I looked at him. This powerful man who thought everything could be bought, including silence about his daughter's crimes. There's no amount of money that would make me walk away from this. Then you're a fool, Gregory said flatly. And fools don't last long in this city. Maybe not, I said. But I'll last long enough to see you and your daughter face justice. I turned to leave, but Sophia's voice stopped me. What about your father, John? You think he's safe now? You think we can't get to him? I turned back slowly, my blood running cold. What did you just say? She smiled through her tears, and it was the ugliest expression I had ever seen. Your precious father, living in your apartment, so vulnerable, so easy to reach. Accidents happen all the time. Gas leaks, fires, falls downstairs. It would be tragic if something happened to him just when you got him back. The rage that filled me was unlike anything I had ever felt. You threatening my father? I'm stating facts, Sophia said, her voice steadying. You want to play this game, John? Fine. But understand the stakes. You go to the authorities, and your father pays the price. Is your righteousness worth his life? For the first time, since entering the room, I felt genuine fear. Not for myself, but for my father, sleeping peacefully in my apartment, finally safe after 2 years on the streets. Gregory sensed my hesitation and pressed the advantage. Be smart. Dr. Miller. Walk away. Forget what you think, you know. Your father gets to live in peace, you get to keep your career, and we all pretend none of this happened. Or refuse, and by tomorrow night, you'll be attending your father's funeral. Your choice. I stood there, my mind racing. They had found my weakness, the one thing that could make me hesitate. My father's safety meant more to me than justice, more than revenge. More than anything. But then I remembered my father's words from last night. These are good people, John. They deserve better than to be used as props for someone's ego. I thought about Thomas, who shared his last sandwich with my father. About Mary, who sang hymns to keep spirits up. About all the homeless people Sophia had exploited, whose suffering had been used to enrich her family while they froze and starved on the streets. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. When my father answered, I said, Dad, remember our conversation about staying at Uncle Mike's place for a few days? I need you to go there now. Pack a bag and leave immediately. Don't tell anyone where you're going. There was a pause, then my father's calm voice. I understand, son. I'm proud of you. I hung up and looked at Sophia and Gregory. My father is a survivor. He lived on the streets for 2 years because of what you did to him. He'll survive this too. And when this is over, when you're both in prison, he'll still be here. But you'll have nothing. Sophia screamed and threw her wine glass at me. It shattered against the wall beside my head, red wine dripping down like blood. You'll regret this, Gregory said, his voice deadly quiet. I will dedicate every resource I have to destroying you. Get in line, I said. Because tomorrow morning, I'm walking into the FBI field office with everything Deborah gave me. And by tomorrow afternoon, the world is going to know exactly what kind of people you are. I walked out of that dining room, leaving behind Sophia's screams and Gregory's threats. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system, but I had done it. I had confronted them, stood my ground, and now there was no going back. As I rode the elevator down, I called my attorney, then my journalist friend, then the detective I had contacted that afternoon. The wheels were in motion. By morning, Sophia's empire would begin its collapse. When I stepped out into the cool night air, I saw police cars pulling up to the hotel. My attorney had worked fast, getting an emergency meeting with a judge who issued warrants based on the evidence I had provided. The authorities were here to seize records and begin their investigation. I stood across the street and watched as officers entered the hotel. 15 minutes later, they escorted Sophia, Gregory, and Ryan out in handcuffs. Sophia was crying, her makeup running, all her polish and beauty stripped away to reveal the criminal beneath. Our eyes met across the distance. In hers, I saw hatred, rage, and disbelief. In mine, she must have seen justice. The beggar she had kicked had turned out to be connected to her greatest secret. And now, that secret was destroying everything she had built on lies. 3 months later, I stood in a newly opened shelter on 5th Street, the very building that had been listed as the Guardian Angel Shelter but had stood empty for years. Now, thanks to the $11 million recovered from Sophia's fraudulent foundations and the additional donations that had poured in after the scandal broke, it was a real shelter. 50 beds, a full kitchen, medical clinic, job training center, everything it should have been all along. My father stood beside me, healthy now, having gained back the weight he had lost. He was wearing a suit I had bought him and working as the shelter's operations director. His business expertise, once nearly destroyed by Gregory Chen's machinations, was now being used to ensure that every donated dollar actually reached the people who needed it. "Dr. Miller," a voice called out. I turned to see Thomas, the man who had shared his last sandwich with my father. He was clean, employed, and volunteering at the shelter, 3 days a week. "Thank you for this place, man. You saved a lot of lives." "Thank my father," I said. "He's the one making sure it runs properly." Thomas grinned. "Already did. Must run in the family. Being decent human beings." After he walked away, my father put his hand on my shoulder. "Your mother would be so proud of you, John." I smiled, feeling the weight of the past 3 months. It had been brutal. The trial, the media attention, the attempts by the Chen family's lawyers to discredit me. But in the end, the evidence had been overwhelming. Sophia Chen had been sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for wire fraud, tax fraud, and theft. Gregory Chen received 15 years for his role in orchestrating the scheme, plus additional charges related to Vincent Zhao's death. New evidence had emerged during the investigation, testimony from witnesses who had been too afraid to speak before, and the fire that killed Vincent was ruled a homicide. Gregory's connections hadn't been able to save him this time. Ryan Foster had cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence of 5 years. He had provided additional evidence about the fake shelters, and confirmed that he and Sophia had been having an affair throughout my relationship with her. Deborah Wong had received immunity for her testimony. She had broken down on the witness stand, apologizing to every homeless person in the courtroom, and pledged to spend the rest of her life working for legitimate charities. I had forgiven her. Unlike Sophia, Deborah had found the courage to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything. The journalist who had been investigating Chen Industries before her supposed suicide had her case reopened. While Gregory couldn't be directly charged with her murder due to lack of evidence, the investigation had revealed enough suspicious circumstances that her death was officially changed from suicide to undetermined. And her family finally had some measure of justice. My medical career had survived intact. The hospital had stood by me once the truth came out, and my reputation had actually improved. Patients specifically requested me, saying they wanted a doctor with integrity. I had been promoted to head of cardiothoracic surgery and given a raise that allowed me to donate a substantial amount to the new shelter. "John," my father said, pulling me from my thoughts. "Someone's here to see you." I turned to find Rebecca Martinez, a young woman I had been mentoring. She had been homeless for 6 months after aging out of foster care and was now enrolled in community college, studying to become a social worker. She wanted to help others like her, kids who fell through the cracks of the system. "Dr. Miller," she said excitedly. "I got accepted to the university's social work program. Full scholarship." "That's incredible, Rebecca. Congratulations." She hugged me impulsively. "None of this would have happened without you. Without this place. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car. Now I have a future." "You always had a future," I said gently. "You just needed someone to believe in you and give you a chance." After she left, chattering excitedly about her classes. My father said, "You've changed a lot of lives, John." "We've changed lives," I corrected. "This shelter exists because you survived, Dad. Because you saw the truth about those fake charities and shared it with me. You're the real hero here." He shook his head. "No, son. You had the courage to stand up to powerful people. That takes a different kind of strength." I thought about that night at the hotel, about Sophia's threats and Gregory's attempts at intimidation. It had taken courage, but it had also taken anger, a righteous fury at the injustice of what they had done. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, I opened it. The message was from Sophia. "I don't know how you got this to me, but I needed you to know. I'm sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it. You deserved better than what I gave you. The homeless people I exploited deserved better. Everyone deserved better. I hope you're happy, John. I hope you found someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Because despite everything, despite all my lies, some part of me did love you. Just not enough to be a better person. I'm paying for that now. Every day in here, I think about what I threw away. Not the money or the status, but you. The one real thing in my life. And I destroyed it. I hope someday you can forgive me, even though I don't deserve it." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, to relish in her suffering. But mostly, I just felt sad. Sad for the woman she could have been if she had chosen differently. Sad for all the pain she had caused. Sad for the waste of it all. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Sophia's apology, whether genuine or manipulative, changed nothing. The homeless people she had exploited were still traumatized. Vincent Zhao was still dead. The journalist's family still grieved. My father still carried the scars of 2 years on the streets. Forgiveness might come someday, but not today. Today was for celebration, for honoring the people who had survived despite Sophia's cruelty. "Are you okay?" my father asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, deleting the message. "I'm good." That evening, the shelter held its official opening ceremony. The mayor attended, giving a speech about compassion and community. Local news covered the event, interviewing residents about how the shelter had changed their lives. Mary, the woman who sang hymns, performed for the crowd, her voice strong and clear. During the ceremony, they unveiled a plaque near the entrance. "In memory of Vincent Zhao and all those who suffered from corruption and greed. May this place stand as proof that truth and justice can prevail." After the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, I found myself alone on the shelter's rooftop, looking out over the city. The lights twinkled in the darkness, each one representing a life, a story, a struggle. I thought about the day I had watched Sophia kick my father, how my world had shattered in that moment. I had lost the woman I thought I loved, but I had gained something more valuable. Purpose. Understanding. The knowledge that standing up for what was right mattered, more than comfort or status or the approval of powerful people. My phone rang. It was Dr. Lisa Chang, a colleague from the hospital. We had been spending time together over the past month, cautiously exploring a friendship that might become something more. She was kind, genuine, and dedicated to her patients. Everything Sophia had pretended to be, Lisa actually was. "Hey," she said. "How did the opening go?" "It was perfect," I replied. "You should have been here." "I had surgery that ran late. But I'm free now, if you want to grab a late dinner." "I'd like that." As I headed down from the rooftop, I passed a bulletin board where residents posted notes of gratitude and hope. One caught my eye. Written in shaky handwriting. "Thank you for seeing us as people. Thank you for not kicking us when we were down." I smiled, tears prickling my eyes. That anonymous note represented everything I had fought for. Recognition of humanity. Dignity, for those society had forgotten. Justice for those who had been exploited. Sophia had kicked a beggar man without knowing he was my father. That single act of cruelty had set in motion a chain of events that brought down her empire and created something beautiful in its place. She had fallen, crying and begging for forgiveness. But forgiveness, like respect, had to be earned. And Sophia's crimes were too vast, too cruel, for easy redemption. Maybe someday, after she had served her time and truly changed, there could be forgiveness. But that was years away. If it ever came at all. For now, I had a shelter full of people who needed help. A father who was finally safe and happy. And a future that looked brighter than I had ever imagined during those dark days when I had been engaged to a monster in designer clothing. I met Lisa at a small restaurant near the hospital. We talked for hours about medicine. About life. About dreams. She told me about the free clinic she wanted to start in an underserved neighborhood. I told her about plans to expand the shelter, to open more facilities across the city. "You're doing important work," she said, her eyes warm with admiration that felt genuine, not calculated. "We're all doing important work," I replied. "Every patient we save, every life we improve, it all matters." As I walked home that night, past streets I had once searched desperately for my father, I felt at peace. The journey from that terrible day at the hotel to this moment had been painful, frightening, and exhausting, but it had been worth it. Sophia had thought she could kick people when they were down and face no consequences. She had believed her wealth and status made her untouchable. She had been wrong. The beggar she kicked had turned out to be my father. And I had turned out to be her reckoning. Justice had been served. Lives had been changed. And the city was a little bit better than it had been before. That was enough. That was everything.